So good morning, Drew. Thanks so much for joining us on Business Owner Spotlight. Really looking forward to hearing what you have to say today. But you want to start off, just introduce yourself and let us know how you got started in business.
Good morning, Scott. Absolutely. My name is Drew McCoubrey, and I'm the managing director for a company in Northern Ireland called Quality Manufacturing Systems. We are actually a dealership for a software product based in Southampton, and I've been with these guys in the region of 20 odd years. But I suppose the story of how I got into business came about more or less because of the day job that I was involved with, because in my previous life, I was a CAD/CAM team leader for Bombardier, previously known as Shorts, in Belfast, where I got an absolutely fantastic education. And I learned a lot with the introduction of new technology. Giving away my age here, so I'm going right back to 1990 when Bombardier bought Shorts over, and they basically transformed the company from being what I would call a knife and fork type operation, where we had a massive amount of skill sets amongst the workforce, but the tools that we were using to do it were so far behind a lot of the competitors that it was actually frightening. I recall one time when Bombardier had just bought the company over, and they came over to do tours around different parts. I was based then in the sheet metal production unit in Newton Ards, a factory called went by the name Hallmark, and we were given a tour around the plant to one of the Bombardier grandees. And when we walked through one area of the factory, they couldn't believe that we were producing parts on a machine that predated the Second World War. So that was a big culture shock to them. And I suppose from our perspective, we just got on with the work and done the work, you know. So there was a lot of learning then to be done from us. And when Bombardier came in, and obviously the government put money in to support them with the takeover, and the place basically revolutionized in say 12 months. So I happened to be there at that point in time. I was going to college for the education, and part of my my HND in engineering at that time was CNC control on machines. So, and like this had been never heard of at this stage, you know. So whenever Bombardier came in, because of the knowledge that I'd got through my education, I just happened to be in the right spot at the right time, and it was something that I really latched on to. You know, I was working with some fantastic engineers, but the guys would have told you themselves, as soon as they set the first computer on the desk, these guys were heading for the exit doors, because they were great engineers, but technology was just like a foreign language to them. So that was basically how I got started in technology. And we come up with some absolutely fantastic innovations that I think even shocked the rest of the Bombardier group, because we had companies in America, 2 or 3 companies in Canada that were a lot more advanced technology ways than what we were. But one of the things, but we soon learned, and we learned very, very quickly, and we actually cut a path through a lot of what we would call old build-to-print contracts, where we were actually actively seeking out these build-to-print projects, and we had developed the process of converting them from the old sort of pen and paper type approach into digital, like a digital transformation, that we could then use this on high-speed CNC machines, and it just built upon success upon success. So it was quite a journey. And I suppose that with that level of experience, I was promoted up the levels and became the CAD/CAM team leader for the
right place, right time. And is that a similar story to what you're doing now with your current business?
Yes, because it was through that role that I actually that I actually became in touch with 123 Insight, who are our parent company. Because part of my role with the promotion that came within Bombardier, where I was promoted to be this CAD/CAM team leader, and I was CAD/CAM team leader for the whole division. So that took in sheet metal production, tool making, you know, five axis robotics, 7 axis robotic. It just grew and grew, and I had guys and I didn't know every nut and bolt of all the systems, but I knew how to get them to work, and finding the right staff to run them just became like a second nature. And because of the role that it was in, it meant then if anything was changing, if we were looking to go down a certain path, then I'd have been tasked Drew, go and have a look and see what you can find. And so often it was more it wasn't so much some that I done myself, but it was finding the key person or piece of technology that would do the job better for us. And I absolutely thrived upon that challenge. So through now, what I did learn, obviously taking on the position of responsibility, I was being approached almost monthly by software vendors trying to sell products to us. And I developed a really good knowledge. And some of the vendors actually were offering me a job to come and work for them because of my background in manufacturing, coupled with this now new technology that was coming forward. And I suppose I never really thought about doing something for myself until these offers started coming in. And I thought, maybe at some point in the future, that might open the door. So what happened was that I had to go across in the early 2001. We were buying a new piece of kit. And I went across to a trade show in England to meet up with a vendor. And whilst at that trade show, I came across the guys that owned 123 Insight at that trade show. And I was absolutely blown away by their product. And the product is known today as 123 Insight. Had a different name back then, so there was an evolution sort of involved. The thing that blew me away about their product was that in Bombardier we had 3 or 4 systems that were all integrated to each other. That Bombardier had spent millions, and I mean tens of millions, to put all these pieces of kit together. And this gentleman, and a guy by the name of Craig Grant, was sitting doing a demonstration on a laptop. So nothing was Windows based back then at Bombardier. And this guy had a management product, and I was, well, what does this do? And he started showing me, and it simply blew me away because the capability that they had built in to a Windows platform was combined, from what I could see at first glance, all of these systems that Bombardier were using into one system.
So something we probably take for granted today was absolutely mind-blowing back then.
Yeah, it was, absolutely. I mean, to give you an example, I remember even around that time, because I put it into sharp contrast. We were putting in because we were growing in Bombardier, and we had to add in a new programming station for a programmer that we were adding to the team. And the hardware alone for the monitor and the keyboard and the box, a bit like a PC, was something like £20,000. It was crazy. Absolutely. That was the level of money, and that was just the norm. And at that point, Windows was just sort of taking off on PCs, and some of us were going, well, what's a PC? We didn't really know. And then, of course, then over the period of time, and this was it was my first time at any event anywhere that I came across somebody that was offering a solid product on a PC. That was the big, and it was right. Okay, so you are now doing this. Now it wasn't as if there was any opportunity for Bombardier out of this.
No.
But where I could see the potential in this particular product was because I knew that the Bombardier supply chain were all struggling with systems because of the high price tags on all of these systems. So I sort of knew, well, I like the look of this, and I might be able to recommend them.
You could bring the bigger business down to the smaller businesses then, or access to what bigger businesses have.
Well, I suppose at that point, I mean, this was just my initial first glance. So, and obviously you want to do a bit more due diligence than just accept what you're seeing on a screen and really delve on underneath to find out what's under the hood. Tell us a wee bit
more about so what does Insight 123 do? Who would be the best sort of customer for you, or who would be best placed to buy your product?
123 Insight is a production management system in the field of MRP. That's where it started off. It's now a full-blown ERP solution. It's the best customer. That probably falls into 2 camps. One, you've got maybe the small startup or the company that's been going for a few years that are just growing gradually. They would, but they're doing things either on pen and paper, normally spreadsheets.
Yeah.
But that becomes very labor intensive, it's a manual input. And obviously then the more your business grows, then the more staff you've got to add, and the harder it becomes to control. So that would be that's one sector where we get it. The other sector where we became very successful later on were these companies that had went and bought what we would refer to as a traditional type product.
Yeah.
And then found out afterwards, well, with the traditional seal, and I'll come back to it in a second, where one of these vendors would have come into your business, spec'd out what they thought your business needed.
Yes.
They would then tell you, this is what we can do. And by the way, here's the price tag. And the price tag usually ran into tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Okay.
And so with that, there was a big risk. And the number of companies that I had came across, even in my lifetime in Bombardier, where some of them had put these systems in and basically parked it because the ongoing costs for consultancy were huge.
Okay.
And there was never really a return on investment because these companies just, I can't afford to spend any more money now. So coming back to the 1, 2, 3 Insight proposition, was apart from being really impressed about the software itself, the other part that impressed me no end was the fact that these guys were offering the software on a pay-as-you-go monthly subscription.
Okay.
Never had been done in this sector. And when I spoke to the owners of the company at that point, they had said, well, they used to own a traditional software house, and they realized over the previous 10 years that the sales model was starting to struggle.
Okay.
Because companies were then becoming a lot more shrewd regards how they spent their money. And they found trying to make that bigger sale with the big ticket price item, that they decided to look and try and come up with a product that came with a completely new philosophy, which was pay. And obviously the pay as you go was starting to take off then with mobile phones and with your television contracts. So, and that's what gave them the idea. Never done before. And I remember saying to Craig Grant during this demonstration, how are you going to sell this? And he said, well, we're going to rent this. And I went, what? You know, that's unheard of. But they stuck by their guns, and they went from strength to strength. And a few years later, I actually took up the opportunity to take up the role to try and develop them.
It seems to me that you were mentioning Craig Grant and yourself, even whenever Shorts or Bombardier wanted to look at a new system, you were the guy sent to go and do it. So both you guys are quite open-minded and aligned in that way. So I'm keen to understand, like what's been your biggest learning since you've been a business owner then?
I suppose the biggest learning, and it's more of a personal thing rather than a generic thing. Basically looking back now, and I would say this to anybody that's starting off, be prepared for disappointment.
Okay.
Now, and I don't want that to sound negative in any respect, but
be realistic.
And I suppose the explain that point is that I seen this product and I knew I did go and do my due diligence. On my holiday period, I went over to Southampton and trained myself, that I learned it inside out, how this would work. And I was absolutely convinced that what I initially seen and what impressed me was backed up by what was in the background. And so from that point of view, then I knew how good this product was.
Yes.
And then when I eventually left Bombardier and got out, I'm thinking, well, this will be straightforward. You'll go out and make a business case. The people will see how much this works, and they'll simply sign up and take it. And the most frustrating thing was when you were going to companies that I absolutely knew that needed this software to help their business, and they simply couldn't see it. So, and the hard part was then dealing with that disappointment. That was more of a personal thing with myself. Why can they not see it? Why have they not moved forward? And it took me maybe a couple of years at least to get that sort of, well, it's not, the timing's not right. And I'll have to say, and maybe 3-4 years later, quite a few of those companies come back then at a later stage. But that was the big challenge for me initially when I started off, was dealing with that disappointment was a key aspect.
Yes, it's not just about having the right product; it's having the right product at the right time.
Absolutely. Timing is everything. Absolutely everything.
And aside from that, then what would you say has been the biggest issues you've had to overcome in business?
I suppose the biggest issues has been, trying how do you, how to grow the business.
Yeah,
At what point do I need to bring new staff in?
yeah,
Or to add staff. Was it when it started off the first number of years, it was just myself because
yeah.
the software is so good that
Yes.
it didn't need a massive support team. So
Yeah.
I could be out there. So I really wear a sort of a hat for every occasion. I provide support. I provide a sales service where I'm trying to gain new customers. I provide on-site support with customers who are maybe bringing new staff in that want
Sure.
on the job training, which is maybe slightly different to our standard training.
Yeah.
I'm loath to use the word consultancy simply because of the fact that it's only if companies actually need our help and they ask, where I would never be trying to sell consultancy per se as what we do, because that's not part of our DNA. So it's been a mixed bag on every front. And suppose that the big challenge at what point do I add staff? And looking back now, I probably should have added them sooner
Yeah.
than I did. And to a degree that held me back. But I suppose part of me was fearful because the software is supplied on a pay-as-you-go monthly subscription. And if the sky caved in, I hated the thought of having to go to tell some very good staff members, look, there's no job for you. And it took me a while to adjust to that, they take that lesson on board. But look, I've got to deal with things as they appear and not to be worrying about what may never happen.
Yeah.
And because unlike some entrepreneurs that maybe are an entrepreneur from the age of 16, I was a bit of a late comer to the party. I didn't go out on my own until the age of 35.
And did you find whenever you were bringing people on, obviously it's quite a courageous step to employ somebody, but did you have any issue with actually relinquishing some of the responsibility that you had held before?
Not really, because the staff before that, the staff now, I don't have a large staff. I've only 2 people that actually work in my part of the dealership. But the reason for that is because of the level of support that I've been given by 123 Insight in Southampton. They take care of all the support calls. Now, I do field support calls from local companies that maybe would want to chat and discuss the wider issue. But our support in Southampton has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So really what I needed was to free up my time. And when I was looking for staff, it was more from an administrative sales perspective. And that was probably the area where maybe from my personal point of view, I wasn't the strongest.
You could recognize that?
Yes, and I absolutely recognize that. And I found I got a member of staff that absolutely loves the sales type of. So I'm more than happy to hand that over and let that member of staff get on with that and free me up to do a lot of other things, which has worked very, very well.
Brilliant. And I'm keen to know, have you learned any favorite quotes or sayings along the way that have served you well?
Yeah, I suppose the one that always stuck in my mind was when I started off and say 35 years of age, walked out of a really well-paid job with a good bit of security to start off from scratch. And I remember it was a cousin of mine who is very entrepreneurial, has been very successful in business, and he used to tell me, you only fail when you stop trying.
Yeah.
You only fail when you stop trying. So stay positive, work hard, and make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I've done. I mean, late nights or weekends, week after week, month after month, year after year. That went on and still sometimes now, if I have a big project on, that would still be the norm. And my wife is the most understanding person ever, that I couldn't have done it without her. But no, so that would, you only fail when you stop trying. Never ever give up. That's what I would stick by.
Keep going with that. And you mentioned there about getting the right people in the right place earlier on, maybe. But if you started your business again, is there anything else you would do a little differently?
I have to say, I don't think I would do anything differently because of the model in which the business is being sold.
Yeah.
The only difference might be that I would have started some of my sales staff a lot earlier than what I did, because, and again, that came down to the self-doubt, you know, the fear of failure, that you could have to hurt someone, that the good people. But no, I don't think and I suppose in a way, when I look back now, I've been doing this 20 odd years, you know, I would be saying to myself, you know, there's not a lot that I would have done different.
Yeah. Well, nice comfort in that then.
Absolutely, because I know that, I mean, and I think if you were to speak to some of my customers, I pride myself. I'm quite fortunate that the family I've been born into almost has hard work written into their DNA, hard work and honesty.
Yes.
And whenever I get a customer, it doesn't matter whether the customer is a small one-man band or a multinational, they get exactly the same level of support from myself. I mean, probably a lot different to maybe traditional vendors that might be a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Number of times I've taken phone calls at 8:30 at night where somebody phones me, Drew, we have an urgent order, get out the door, and something I don't know what I've done wrong. Hold on, I'll go and jump on and we'll sort this right now.
You can tell from talking to you, like your staff and your customers are at the forefront of everything you do, and I hope that pays you dividends, pays you back.
I think so, because a wise man told me once when I was starting off, he said, you know, if there's customers that customers will come and go. He says, but what you need to do, and this guy worked in the IT sector, and he said, and what he said to me, he says, Drew, if you can gain a friend before you gain a customer, and so I try to nearly avoid the business talk, as it were, just to be telling these guys that are thinking of taking a step forward, look, trust me, I've got your back.
Yeah, we'll do it.
And I think I've proved that over the years, where I remember a number of years ago, a consultancy company done some work with us, and they were looking to help us with the PR and what we could do to improve our image and what we were doing.
Sure.
And the guy said, one of the questions the guy asked me, he said, well, if we were to go and ask your customers how they rate you out of 10, what number would you expect they would respond with?
Yeah.
And I says, well, I would be disappointed if I got less than 9.
Yeah.
And the guy more or less said to me, wise up, you know, nobody ever gets a 9. You may get a 7 or an 8, but very rarely you'll get a 9. And I says, well, I would be disappointed. So they went away and done their research. They asked for details of our customers, and they done a follow-up meeting with me some 6-8 weeks later. And when I sat down with them, and the guy said to me, he says, I cannot believe, he says, you actually, there was only one company give you an 8, and the rest of them, I think they've contacted 6 or 7, 9 out of 10.
Brilliant.
He says, he says, that's an incredible, you're obviously doing something right.
Yeah. So it's you know, it's a feedback's the breakfast of champions, isn't it? You need to know that, but the fact that you're disappointed with anything less than a 9, I think speaks volumes. And
that's exactly how I would view it, you know, because of this pay-as-you-go monthly subscription on our software. So we have to be totally honest and upfront in our proposition. If I was to come to you and try and sell my wares, as it were, and I kept something hidden, and you thought that our software could do something that I knew that it couldn't, what's going to happen, Scott? In a few months' time, you're going to say, that guy came in here, he oversold it, and I don't trust him. And what are you going to do? Because it's a monthly subscription. You simply pull the plug on the subscription and you walk away, and my credibility is shredded. I would rather not have you as a customer than take that risk.
I know what you mean.
And I have to say that even with 123 Insight in Southampton, they have, and that's why I suppose why that match between myself and them was they're exactly the same.
Yeah, no, that's and that's why you're here 20 years later. So look, just before we finish up, I'd be interested to know if you could go back in time and give 18-year-old Drew one piece of advice, what would it be?
The one piece of advice: educate yourself.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is, I would, as I said, I've already mentioned about the sort of my family influences. I've been very, very lucky with the family that I've been born into. My father, my late father, he passed away a few years ago. He had his oldest brother was a cutting edge entrepreneur, back in the day. That's going back to the 60s. He went and educated himself when educational opportunities were very, very restricted for working class people. And he ended up becoming, my dad's oldest brother became basically he was the CEO of that became a multinational company that employed over 1,000 people in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
And my family always sort of looked up to my dad's oldest brother. My dad was a working class man, and he recognized, although he wasn't an entrepreneur, didn't run a business, but he recognized in his brother the education that stood by him. So when I was growing up, my father impressed upon me no end, educate yourself, educate yourself. And even after I left school and my exam results maybe weren't what I would have wished them to have been, don't worry, keep going, keep going. And my father he really pushed me. And I would give the same advice to anybody, because I ended up going to college for 13 years part-time.
Well, you took your own advice, you know, and that's why you were doing your HND, and you know the opportunity came in shorts, and this is how it's worked out. So
absolutely, and that education was the foundation, and coupled with again, so not just my uncle who I looked up to, who was this, but then my uncle's son, who's my cousin, a guy called Stephen McCoubrey. He'll not thank me for maybe putting his name out here, but Stephen has been a massive influence because he's been an entrepreneur in many different areas.
Yeah.
And when I went and spoke to him about, I've came across this software product, I think I could do something with it. What are you waiting for? Go for it. Now that was a big decision to walk away from a really well-paid job at the age of 35 with the mortgage and the bills and everything that comes with life. But I was fortunate with family and the advice that I was given, and they were there for me. And I would say exactly the same to anybody. Go and educate yourself. And I don't mean just academical education. I'm also talking workplace education. Go and, you get into something, go and learn it inside out.
Yeah.
If you become an expert, and then when somebody asks or somebody needs a bit of advice, you're in the right position to give that advice. And that's what I have done, really. I don't look at myself and think I'm a top class entrepreneur. I have simply learned and I've tried to develop myself internally and then use that to my own benefit.
Drew, look, thanks so much for coming on. Really enjoyed the story. You took us way back to the start there and right up to the present, and I enjoyed every bit of it. So thanks for sharing that, and looking forward to getting it out there for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott.